If you in your owner or leader journey has ever felt so frustrated by having to carry every little decision, the marketing, the finance, the strategy, the hiring, the everything, then this episode is for you. I'm Suzanne Rath, and you're listening to Endures for your daily dose of endurance leadership and life lessons. So today at lunch, I was sitting with an awesome female business owner based in Cairns, and we were really trying to separate the wheat from the chaff around what are the repetitive tasks that frustrate us versus what are the repetitive tasks that are just getting draining because they don't align with our zone of genius, or because we're so overloaded with everything else. So let me give you an example. When we look at the role of, say, a clinic owner, which I have been for 9 years, we can tie in the number of tasks that I have to do into really these kind of 5 levers, which are around marketing, team, system strategy, mindset, and finances. So if you have to constantly shift focus between all of those things all of the time, and you don't have a structure or a strategy that and a way that you plan out your week, where you time block, where you delegate as much of the tasks that really aren't in your genius zone to somebody else, where you're just constantly switching focus from one thing to the next and reacting and putting out fires, then even the things that maybe you used to love or that are in your genius zone, or that 10 years ago you felt yourself going, oh, I want to do this with my life and my leadership, and suddenly you're at this point where you're doing that but it's not fulfilling, even those become draining. And so what we spoke about was that having that capacity to step back, to refocus and reset, to redesign roles, but to have that thinking space, which is so important, to be able to separate out things that are frustrating because of that overload versus things that are frustrating because they sit so far outside of our genius zone. So for me, when I did my own genius work, what I realized was that my genius zones are in wonder and invention, which is big picture thinking and solutions. But there have been times when I've been frustrated because other people don't come up with solutions, and that's been because I've been so overloaded with everything else. Once I started to own my zone of genius and recognize other people's zones of genius and where they could be used, the frustration went. Once I structured my time, so I had the thinking time, so I had the space, so I wasn't multitasking all the time, so I wasn't constantly reacting. So even something that you might love, even something that's in your genius zone, if it is held in this space where there's just too much in that space, even that turns to, from gold into mud, right? So I encourage you to see where you can carve out that thinking time, really become quite conscious, quite aware of what the things are that actually you're kind of okay to hold. Even if you're frustrated, you're just having a bad day, but you're okay to hold those things. What I realized in my clinical business was that even the things that I thought of as my zone of burnout, so for example, galvanizing, which is getting people together around ideas and getting them G'd up and excited about it, when I framed that into the leadership that I love to do and aligned it with how I communicate, how I operate, how I best show up, which is in this space of accountability, appreciation, action taking, and how all of us, team members, owners, everybody, we can have a framework for being more appreciative, for aligning ourselves with the greater good, with the greater vision, with values, but there's a strategy and a framework to that. When I shifted from that idea to that idea of galvanizing, rather than having the idea of galvanizing as being trying to make people happy or motivate people, and realize that people have that need to internally motivate and make themselves happy, and that self-leadership is at the core of those, my leadership became so much easier. So if you want a starting point for this, I would recommend checking out my peak performance assessment. This is a one-on-one assessment where we get to the bottom of your genius zone, get you some strategies to increase your energy, increase your vitality, increase your alignment, increase your connection, and really give you a great place to kickstart the year. I will see you all tomorrow for more from Endures. Thank you and have a great day. Bye.